do you have any stories to tell, either nightmare stories or just absolute wonderful stories that you'd like to share? And you
Oh,
can tell as many as you want, but one of each at least.
oh my God. Yeah, I have a million. I think anybody who's in a band who does any amount of touring has a million billion stories. One of the ones that immediately comes to mind is actually from our European tour. And we got connected with this guy out of Europe, who's a very, very, very nice individual, and a fabulous human being. And he ran a small record company. He was starting up a small record company. And one of our friend bands from North Carolina basically made the connection because he, out of the blue, contacted them on Facebook, and he's like, I love your band. When you're coming to Germany, I'd love to see you in Germany. And they were like, ha ha ha, ha, right, right. And he's like, no, really, I can set you up with the whole tour. It'll be great. I get a bus and everything. And they were like, wait, really? And so they went over and they had a wonderful time with him, played a huge festival, made a ton of money. And I was like, does he like Lords of the Trident? He's like, oh yeah, he can't stop talking about you guys. I'm like, well, just give him my email. Like, what are you doing? So, so we started going back and forth on doing this tour, and the guys in Mega Colossus down in North Carolina are probably my favorite band, personally to tour with and to play with and to just I'm a big fan of their music, so I just love hanging around them and hearing them play live. And we've known each other for a long time. And they said to me when the tour started to come into fruition, they said, now Ty, I know you love your spreadsheets. Okay, I know you love your spreadsheets, and I know you like to have everything planned 6 months, 8 months in advance, right? But just FYI, Europe doesn't really work that way. This guy, the guy who's planning the tour, it doesn't really work that way. It may be a month out, it may be 2 months out until you get your final schedule, and you just gotta go with the flow, man. You just gotta relax. You gotta let it happen. And I am very bad at that. I am insanely horrible at letting other people do work for me. It's one of my weaknesses. And so, but I had just come off of a really mentally taxing CD release with Shadows from the Past. There was a lot of stuff going on in the background, and a lot of heavy disappointment that happened that kind of I felt squarely rested on my shoulders. So I was looking forward to giving this an opportunity to sort of say, okay, this is a great chance for me to just let the universe take care of me. Like I gotta trust that this is gonna work. So we had fans over in Europe messaging me like, I see you coming to Prague, but there's nothing listed, and like, where are you playing? And I'm like, dude, I don't know. Like, I don't know. And it had to be that. It ended up having to be that for like up until, I don't know, 3 weeks out. We were supposed to be playing 10 shows over in Europe, and the guy had only booked 4. And that I was going into panic mode. I was like, okay, look, it's 2 weeks. We have, like, I don't care if we're playing a basement, And one of our fans got a hold of us over in Germany, and he's like, hey, what's going on? I see there's all these TBAs, and I kind of gave him the full scoop. I'm like, here's what's going on. So this is actually a story of both amazing human kindness and also tour disaster at the same time. So he goes, oh, can I help you set up some shows? I'm like, yes, I will, anything, And he's like, my friend has a Dungeons and Dragons shop, and there's a back room where they play, where the room where everybody sets up their minis and plays. Would you want to play there? Could you do an acoustic show? And I'm like, dude, I will do anything. I'll do a basement. I'll do a back bar. I'll do like somebody's porch. At this point, I don't care. I'll do anything. And so he sets us up with a show there, and he sets us up with one more show. Those 2 shows ended up being the best 2 shows on the tour. And part of the reason for that was we went over to Germany, or we flew into Brussels. We flew into Belgium, and we had a show the very next day. So we were all experimenting with the idea of, if you stay up until it is nighttime in the place that you're flying to and then go to sleep, that should eliminate the jet lag. That's what everybody says. That's what the internet says. Like, you gotta just tough it out and stay awake until the time and reset your biological clock. And that's all fine and good, except we left Chicago at like 5 p.m. and we didn't make it into Brussels until, like, we were essentially awake for 32 hours straight. And I was waiting in a hostel in Brussels for this guy who I've never met and I've never seen, to come with our, who's setting up the entire tour, to come with our bus. And he's messaging me things on Facebook Messenger like, I'm just one country over. I'll be right there. And I'm like, what? What? You're one country over? What? Like just European things. And eventually, after an hour, he shows up. Yeah, I've got his picture on my phone, and every time somebody comes through the door, I'm like looking up, like, oh, no, that's not him. Oh, no, no, that's not him. And I am eventually, a guy who looks exactly like him walks through the door, and I'm like, oh, but he walks through the door with a blind cane, and I'm like, oh, he's not blind. He's not blind. That's okay, And this guy, like, he's got a kid with him, short-haired, red-haired German kid, and they walk right next to. I'm sitting at this table. They walk right up next to me, and the German kid is staring at me, and I'm kind of like staring at him. I haven't slept for like 32, 34 hours, and we're all just kind of deliriously staring at each other. And I kind of, like, out of the corner of my mouth, I go like, Raphael. I say his name, and he goes, "Hey, Ty, what's going on?" And my first words to him were, "What? You're blind?" And he's like, "Yeah, didn't anybody tell you?" And I was like, "No, nobody." Like, Mega Colossus didn't tell me he was blind. He didn't tell me he was blind. And look, this is not saying that I will not work with a blind guy. This absolutely not. It's just that I was sending him graphics. I was sending him t-shirt designs. I was sending him poster designs. And I was saying, "How does this look?" And he says, "Looks good." And like, maybe tell me that you can't see it, And of course, our t-shirts came out completely the wrong color, completely the wrong size. Like, there was so many, like, graphical issues that if I would have known that he was blind, I would have handled myself, but no one ever told me. So there was that. And he was a wonderful person, but he also forgot to book accommodations for pretty much every night of the tour. And if you're in a bus with 8 people and you're looking for a cheap hostel to stay at, you kind of have to book that in advance. We were expecting to stay at like $20 a night hostels where you're sleeping in a room with like 17 other people. And if you don't book those in advance, especially on like a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night, the only places that are open and available and have space for like a big giant bus with 8 people are like $500 a night hotels in the middle of Milan, Italy, right? So we ended up spending an obscene amount of money on only accommodations for this tour, and we ended up coming home 10 grand in debt, and almost all of that was from staying at fancy hotels because there was no other place to park the van, or to park the bus. And so, yeah, so there was, it was definitely troublesome. If we didn't have the Patreon, Lords of the Trident would have broken up after that experience, because we would have still been at each other's throats about, like, paying off the 10 grand and like, oh my God, my credit card's coming due. I need money, blah, 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 blah. But thankfully we've got the Patreon and we were able to, in a couple months, come back from that. But yeah, that's one of the wonderful tour stories of this guy just on the internet randomly helping us out and making getting 2 of the best shows together. I should also mention there was a wonderful burlesque troupe in Vienna who set up a show for us. Same exact situation. They're like, I don't see anything on the website. Where are you playing? And I was like, I don't know. And they're like, can we set up something for you? they put us up in their homes. They cooked lunch for us. They cooked dinner for us. Just you get some of the most amazing, incredibly, warm-hearted people that you meet on the road that just help out bands. And the being on tour really simultaneously resuscitates your faith in humanity, and also does the opposite at the exact same time. It's like crushing despair, and then also there are these little glimmers of like, man, people aren't so bad. And then you get to the venue and you're like, man, people are bad.